Kim Do-yoon stands in the awakening hall as the screen flashes, experience registration, support, combat potential, 0. A snicker cuts through the silence, and the examiner closes the file early and waves him out without looking him in the eye. They hand him a gray band with stripped-down access while the elites pass by with blue tags. Park Min-jae clips his shoulder and mutters, "Don't get in the way." Do-yoon says nothing, but he remembers the voice and the faces. In the locker room, his cubby is stamped restricted, and his card won't open the training hall. The administrator turns him away in a flat voice, and Do-yoon backs off under the pressure of the line while memorizing the access rules on the display. Outside, a trainer stops him near the practice dummies. "Don't waste the resources." Do-yoon steps away, but stays close enough to count everyone else's strikes and pauses, copying their stances without system access. That night he submits an application and gets a clean, instant denied. Then he saves the screenshot, reads the line about private jobs outside the academy, closes the window, and starts picking addresses. At the job board, he takes a D-rank basement crawl. The shopkeeper hesitates, then hands over the key with a muttered, "No payment if you fail," and Do-yoon nods before heading down into the damp. The first rat sinks its teeth into his ankle, and he fights it off with a crowbar. He stumbles back, then goes in again and finishes it. Plus 2 EXP flashes in front of his eyes, and he starts looking for the next target. He clears the basement up to 98-100 and drags it out on purpose, but the last rat launches at his chest. He goes down hard, and swings blind until the burst of a level up rips through his body. Outside, he checks the window again, accumulation locked. He writes it down and keeps walking, because now the numbers are giving him direction. They won't let him into the combat section of the cafeteria, so he eats by the vending machines and sketches out a threshold chart until the noise around him fades into nothing. A D-rank gate opens in the tunnel, and he slips inside. He stays at the edge of the group and quietly picks off the slimes that fall behind, careful not to draw attention. The floor gives way beneath him, and he crashes into a lower chamber. In the dark, a huge slime lurches out, and he hacks through the sticky mass until he finds the core and beats it until it bursts. Plus 30 EXP flashes, along with the line "Death Retention" hidden. He's still trying to catch his breath when they haul him out, and the party leader claims the fight is his own. Do-yoon stays quiet. The med station wraps him up fast. Outside the door, people are already arguing over EXP distribution, and he notices his numbers are higher than some of the groups and marks that down as an advantage. That night he builds a chart and spots the unlock condition, critical event, but he shelves it for now, because first he needs to build up more. In a storage den full of parasites, he sets traps and works in tight sequences. One breaks through and bites into his hand, throwing off his rhythm, but after a retreat he gets control back. No damage streak appears on the screen. He changes the way he fights and squeezes out the bonus, but it costs him time and part of the payout, the first price of being careful. At the exit, Min-jae asks about the solo clears. Do-yoon gives him nothing useful, and later, when he notices he's being tailed, he loses him through the market by switching routes. In a trap zone, arrows punch through his shoulder and force him into cover. Deeper in, a goblin pack closes in, one catches him from behind, and he drops while burning stored accumulation into stamina. He wins, but it costs him. His reserve EXP crashes, and for the first time he feels what it means to spend something real just to stay alive. Min-jae blocks him at the job board, so Do-yoon shifts to private clients and takes a risky collector run with no security. The hired men demand a cut, and he slips into a side tunnel instead. Then the ceiling trap starts dropping, and he has to leave his knife behind to squeeze through his first real material loss. Past the trap, an elite monster is waiting. He goes for the joints, takes a deep slash for it, but still finishes the kill and walks away with a heavy reward package. Rumors about him start spreading, and the commission calls him in. They put limits on his night runs, and he finds a workaround through the laundry entrance. Min-jae corners him on the stairs and tries to provoke a fight. Do-yoon walks away and gets the warning anyway. The exhaustion keeps building, so he pushes the grind even harder. This time he goes looking for a critical event on purpose, but he miscalculates. The monster hits harder than expected, and he drops into blackness. Death EXP retained triggers, but part of what he saved gets locked. His body comes back weakened, and he has to retreat without finishing the target. The system saves him and punishes him at the same time. The rumors reach the guilds, and a manager from Northern Claw offers him a trial run. Do-yoon accepts. On the trial, they ignore him from the start. He works the edge of the fight and saves a tied-up pair of fighters. Then the leader accuses him of going rogue, but the manager gives him one more shot with conditions. On the second trial, an anomaly breaks out. The leader ignores Do-yoon's warning, so he pulls part of the group out and gives up the elite loot, and in return he gets a contract tagged with a control mark. Guild missions box in his movement, he saves a fighter by redistributing at the wrong moment and loses the chance to land the finishing blow. Then the manager demands full disclosure. He refuses and gets demoted. Min-jae turns up the pressure through the administration, so Do-yoon moves into C- territory, keeping control and staying clear of death. He beats a boss without triggering anything, but preserves the core of his accumulation, and from then on his strategy turns more cautious. The mark logs don't line up, and the manager tightens the leash, so Do-yoon starts cheating the system, making real runs off the books. Min-jae lays a trap for him. Do-yoon avoids it by taking the long way around, only to run into a powerful solo hunter who already knows his style. He loses to a human opponent this time, and falls back after giving up the zone and a chunk of accumulation. The scale of the threat has changed. In the archives, he starts digging for records on skills like his. They catch him, and his zone access gets restricted even further. He goes back to small jobs, but the decent zones are taken, the money dries up, and his standing drops with it. Min-jae tears into his reputation in public, and part of the guild starts wondering if he's worth the trouble after all. A glitch in the mark opens a window. He slips into a sealed zone, finds a trap team inside, and chooses rescue over farming. He fights the boss without touching death, wins, but comes out drained, and at the exit they hit him with an ultimatum: reveal the truth or lose the contract. He asks for one last chance, and gets a trial mission in an anomaly zone with a hard limit. Inside, he heads straight for the core and ignores part of the mob pressure. He misreads the route twice, then corrects fast and keeps going. He gets the group out with minimal losses, then fights the Guardian while holding the line without triggering anything. The mission clears, the restrictions ease up, but the surveillance stays in place. He changes the strategy now: fewer cycles, more precise node hits. A caravan mission gives him a bonus for holding the line, but it costs him an elite target he wanted. Rumors about dying to grow start poisoning his jobs, so he takes a public clear and works under watchful eyes. He finishes it clean, some of the rumors die down, and the guild offers him a series of missions instead of demanding disclosure. Through the series, he keeps controlled time, defense, anomaly handling without death, and earns partial access to C zones. Min-jae offers an alliance for entry into a sealed zone, and Do-yoon agrees, but only on hard terms. Inside, they move in parallel, the tension keeps climbing, and then the boss appears with barely any room to maneuver. Min-jae makes a reckless play, counting on Do-yoon to reveal himself, but Do-yoon doesn't bite. Min-jae takes critical damage, and Do-yoon chooses to save him, giving up a huge packet of EXP to do it. The boss goes down. Do-yoon loses his stored accumulation, and Min-jae keeps his status. The balance shifts. Min-jae admits he owes him, but doesn't yield, offering a truce instead. Do-yoon accepts without trusting him for a second. Do-yoon starts hunting rare zones with low competition, and gathers entry passes by trading in materials. In one zone, he holds an unstable core and gains passive growth, but under pressure he has to burn accumulation into stamina just to keep it together. He breaks the core and comes out exhausted, then gets jumped at the exit and loses part of the haul, the price of taking the risk. The guild offers him a closed zone access program in exchange for partial disclosure, and he asks for one final evaluation. A whole chain of no-death tasks pushes him to the edge. One slip nearly breaks him, but he keeps control. He gets access to a closed zone with restrictions, and the price is future transparency. At the entrance, Min-jae offers to go in together. Do-yoon says nothing and walks in alone. Inside, the monsters are rare and strong, and he moves slowly, refusing to let the system set the pace. He finds a descent to a deeper level where the mark logs lag behind, and he steps down. At the bottom, the silence feels wrong. The environment doesn't behave by any pattern he knows, and he can't see the system conditions at all. He takes position and waits. For the first time, he has no ready model to work from. In the dark, another interface flares to life, another system user, and Do-yoon steps forward as he realizes the rules have changed. The stranger doesn't attack, But his interface is different: EXP lines in red, coefficients in the negative. Instead of stepping forward, Do-yoon eases back half a step and tests the distance and the reaction. The stranger breaks the silence first, tossing a marker to the floor: suppression zone, skills muted. The light around them dims, Do-yoon's windows tremble, and he feels redistribution start to drag. Do-yoon doesn't trigger any enhancement, he starts moving instead, testing the edges of the suppression field, while the stranger tracks him at an easy pace and quietly cuts off the stairs. The first exchange is short. Do-yoon hits for the joint, but the strike lands empty. The stranger's defense isn't numeric, it's state-based, nullifies contribution. Do-yoon backs off and changes the angle. The stranger answers with a grapple and drags him toward the center, where suppression hits harder. Do-yoon dumps part of his accumulation into speed and breaks free, but the gauge drops faster than it should. The coefficient is reduced. He gets it now: a straight fight is a losing trade, so he steers the other man toward a collapsed pillar and bets on raw physics, but when the rubble comes down, the stranger walks out untouched. Environmental immunity, limited. Do-yoon catches the instant the immunity flickers and unloads a combo. He gets partial contribution, but the counter lands a mark called debt, stacking penalty, and his numbers start bleeding away. He cuts off the exchange and tears open the distance, because the debt is growing faster than he can deal damage, and instead of chasing, the stranger plants a second suppression zone and seals the way back. Do-yoon changes the objective: not victory, data. He throws a signal beacon, a log anchor, into a dark corner so it can record the stranger's behavior. The stranger notices the beacon and moves to crush it. Do-yoon intercepts, blocks the line, and for the first time takes a direct hit on purpose just to keep the recording alive. The pain and the loss on the gauge are both real. Debt reaches threshold, and the system warns of forced deduction. Do-yoon burns off part of his accumulation to keep from dropping below zero, and loses a package he had built up in advance. He retreats toward the stairs, but the path is closed, so he goes deeper instead, into the level where the guild mark logs lag harder and the unknown is his only bet. Farther down, the structure changes and the walls seem to shift, suppression turns unstable, and Do-yoon uses the gaps to fire off short bursts of enhancement and save resources. The stranger follows, but now his zones are drifting. Do-yoon catches an opening and lands one clean strike, stripping debt for a single cycle, the first tactical win he's had. He doesn't press it, he goes deeper instead, because in this game control matters more than damage, and for the first time the stranger accelerates and changes rhythm. At a turn in the passage, Do-yoon finds what's left of a research team trapped in a pocket. The choice comes back again, and he gets two of them out fast while leaving the third behind with the equipment, the cost of time. One of the rescued researchers triggers the emergency lights, the zone brightens, suppression weakens, and the stranger takes a step back. Do-yoon locks it in, light cuts his advantage. He stalls near the light source without engaging, and slowly levels out the gauge, while debt stops growing even though his accumulation is almost empty. The connection to the guild mark comes back online, and a hard command arrives ordering him to leave the level, but he ignores it because the data still isn't enough. The stranger changes tactics: no more pressure, just sealing exits one by one, and Do-yoon realizes he's being herded toward the center. At the center sits the suppression core, the source of the zones. Do-yoon doesn't attack right away, instead watching the activation rhythm and marking the windows where the field drops. Then he takes the risk, stepping into a window and striking the node hard enough to peel off one layer, but the backlash hits him with recoil, temporary weakening, and he almost goes down. The stranger comes in to finish it. Do-yoon doesn't meet force with force, he breaks the line and drags the fight around the core, forcing the other man through his own fields. At the overlap point, the stranger blanks out for a split second, and Do-yoon catches it, planting the beacon marker directly on him and locking in the parameter record. The price is a direct blow to the chest. He crashes down with his breath wrecked, death right at the edge, but he holds off on the trigger because he can't afford the penalty. He crawls out of the center and leaves the beacon running. The stranger tears it off, but not before part of the data is already recorded. Using the last of the light, Do-yoon retreats to the stairs, and breaks upward while the zones are still unstable. At the exit, a guild team is waiting with Min-jae. The logs show anomalous values, and they demand answers, but Do-yoon hands over only part of the data and hides the core. The manager demands the full report, and offers immediate disclosure in exchange for protection, but Do-yoon refuses and chooses the risk instead. Min-jae sees the marks of the fight and asks only one thing: who's down there? Do-yoon answers, someone the system doesn't count, and walks past him. That night he studies the recording: suppression zone, debt, stacking penalty, environmental immunity. The stranger's logic isn't built around growth, it's built around restriction. He reaches the obvious conclusion: against enemies like that, straight accumulation turns into a weakness, so he changes strategy: fewer stockpiles, more flexibility. The guild tightens control and freezes access to the deep levels, and with that, Do-yoon loses his best growth channel. He takes a run of city jobs instead, but now he trains without the system: pure mechanics, breath control, positioning, anything that keeps him from relying on timing windows. On one assignment, he gives up the streak bonus on purpose, just to preserve strength and stay out of danger, a conscious refusal of EXP. Rumors about debt spread fast, and some clients start avoiding him, afraid he attracts trouble. The money drops again. Min-jae offers a trade: information on the deep level for a joint entry on his terms. Do-yoon doesn't agree, but he doesn't reject it outright either. The manager gives him an ultimatum: partial disclosure now, or lose the contract, and Do-yoon chooses to lose it and walk away from the guild. The drop in status is instant: access gets cut, the mark comes off, the protection vanishes, and he's left alone with the data and the risk. He sells part of his loot, and uses the money to buy an independent pass into an unstable zone with no central oversight. Once inside, he avoids farming altogether, and heads straight for anomalies, testing how suppression behaves without a core and collecting fragments of a pattern. He finds a weaker version of the zone, and trains himself to get out of it clean, building a counter rhythm step by step. On the way back, he runs into that same powerful solo hunter. The man tries to force a fight, but Do-yoon refuses and leaves rather than accept a losing setup. He writes it down as fact: choosing a fight is a resource, and he stops treating any clash as mandatory. A new group appears in the city, hunting anomalies. They offer cooperation with no demand for disclosure, and Do-yoon checks the terms carefully. He accepts a short contract for one run, where the objective is zone mapping, not clearing. Inside, they move as a real team. Do-yoon guides them through the suppression windows, keeping losses down, and the results speak for themselves without anyone asking for his numbers. At the exit, the leader offers him a long contract. Do-yoon turns it down, not willing to step under anyone's control again. He goes back to the map, and builds a new route, a chain of anomalies instead of standard dungeons. At one node, he feels that foreign logic again, but weaker this time. He tests his countermeasures and gets through clean without penalties. That gives him something he hasn't had in a while: confidence that the system can be not just dodged, but partially neutralized. He decides to go back to the deep level, but this time with a plan: light, markers, short bursts, no accumulation stockpile. Min-jae is waiting at the entrance again, but this time there's no pressure in it, just an offer to go together and split the risk, and Do-yoon agrees as an equal. Below, they move in sync. Min-jae holds the line while Do-yoon reads the zones, and the tension is still there, but now it works instead of breaking them. The stranger appears again, faster now, with wider zones. Do-yoon doesn't engage right away and starts drawing him toward the light and the overlaps. Min-jae nearly lunges into a direct fight. Do-yoon stops him with one sharp command, and for the first time Min-jae listens, accepting the tactic. Together, they break one suppression node and open a window. Do-yoon plants the beacon, and Min-jae keeps the pressure steady. The stranger answers by tagging both of them with debt. Do-yoon splits the risk and burns part of his own resource so Min-jae doesn't drop. The cost goes both ways now. In the short opening, Do-yoon unloads on the core, and Min-jae finishes the guardian, shutting the node down for several full cycles. They don't try to finish the stranger, they take the maximum data they can and pull back, choosing survival over victory. At the exit, neither of them says a word, but the balance has changed. Min-jae no longer sees him as trash, and Do-yoon no longer sees him as a tool. The city greets them with rumors of a new threat, and the guilds start rethinking their access rules. Do-yoon turns down every offer to disclose, and slips back into the shadows, not as someone hiding, but as someone choosing the field. He opens the anomaly map and marks a chain of deep nodes, where debt is strong, but manageable. In the final scene, he descends toward the next node, where the interface flickers in two layers, his and the stranger's, and he steps forward knowing the rules will start changing faster than he can count.